Hello, you're listening to EduTalks by Mateen Yousuf, your space for clear concepts and meaningful learning. In this podcast series, we share clear and thoughtful insights on education. Each podcast breaks down ideas into simple, practical, and easy to understand points.
So today we're doing a deep dive into a set of excerpts called Redefining Education. They're from the National Education Policy 2020.
Right. And, when you hear government policy on education, you kind of brace yourself for, logistics, exam schedules.
Dry administrative stuff.
Yeah, but this feels different. It seems like the mission here is almost philosophical.
It really is. The NEP 2020 isn't just trying to, fine-tune the old system.
No.
It's basically arguing that we've misunderstood how people actually learn. It's trying to shift us from a culture of memorization to one of real growth.
That's a huge claim. Let's start with the most direct line in the text. It literally says, learning is not memorizing. But, let me play devil's advocate for a second. You do need to memorize some things, right? You have to know your multiplication tables.
Of course.
Yeah.
But the policy makes this really important distinction between, let's say, functional memory and what it calls rote learning.
And rote learning that's the stuff you cram just to spit it back out on an exam paper. The text argues that this actually limits your thinking. It creates a total disconnect.
So you have the information, but you don't have the context for it.
Exactly. It's the difference between, say, knowing the definition of photosynthesis
And understanding why your plant dies if you stick it in a dark closet for a month.
You've got it. The whole point is to understand the connections. If you can't take what you know and apply it to a new problem, then, according to this, you haven't really learned it.
Okay, so that leads us to this other term that I see all over these pages, competency-based learning. To be honest, competency sounds a bit like corporate jargon,
Yeah.
something from a performance review. What does it actually mean in a classroom?
It does sound a bit stiff, I agree, but the definition here is actually quite human. It's a formula. Competency equals knowledge plus skills plus values plus attitudes.
Whoa, okay. That's a much bigger picture. School usually just focuses on the knowledge part.
And that's exactly the problem they're trying to fix. That's why they pair competency with a holistic approach.
Holistic?
Yeah, the idea is that we've been treating schools like, just factories for the brain, for cognitive development. We've been ignoring the emotional, the physical, the ethical side of a person.
So wait, if a student gets a perfect score on their math test, but they can't collaborate with anyone or manage their stress,
Then under this model, no, they aren't considered fully educated. The goal isn't just to produce a topper. It's to develop a balanced and responsible individual.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
But what does it look like? On a Tuesday morning in a 5th grade class, if the student is now at the center, what's actually happening?
Well, you're seeing a shift in the whole dynamic of the room. The text is very clear that the teacher's role has to change.
From what to what?
From an instructor, someone who just stands at the front and transmits information to a facilitator and guide.
Which implies the students aren't just sitting there quietly taking notes anymore.
They can't be. The whole policy is pushing for active learning.
So less listening.
And more doing, more experiential learning, project work, debates, solving actual problems. The core idea is that learning is a verb.
And it seems like this applies to the timeline of learning, too. The document really flags foundational literacy and numeracy. Why is that so important?
Because that's the starting line. The research shows that if you don't have a rock-solid base in reading and basic math from a young age,
Then what?
then all those amazing higher-level skills we were just talking about, critical thinking, ethics, they become almost impossible to build later on. It all rests on that foundation.
Okay, so that's the start. But the timeline doesn't just end at graduation, does it?
Not at all. And this is probably the most important point for you listening. The NEP defines learning as continuous and lifelong.
We have this habit of thinking once you get the degree, you hang it on the wall, you're done, you're educated.
This framework says, no, that was just the tutorial level. In a world that's changing this fast, the ability to keep learning is way more valuable than whatever you already know.
So this is basically a wake-up call. It's asking everyone to stop just collecting credentials and start actually seeking out understanding.
To prioritize application over accumulation.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to chew on. If learning is truly holistic and lifelong, as this policy suggests, then here's the question. What's one competency, a skill, a value, an attitude that you've learned recently, totally outside of a formal classroom, that matters more to your actual daily life than your high school grades ever did?
Something to think about. Thanks for listening.
In today's podcast, we explore key ideas worth knowing. Let's begin.